He married her for the money. But what he found will haunt you. Have you ever wondered if, in a single moment, a stranger appeared and said they could save your entire family from despair, but only if you agreed to marry them, would you say yes? Would you have the courage to trade your future, your dignity, and even your freedom just to save a dying loved one? Arun Mehta didn't have the privilege of choosing. He no longer had the luxury of debating morality or pride. In a life where every breath felt like a race against rising dead, where despair crept into every meal and restless night, Arun was left with empty hands and a heart that had long stopped dreaming. His father had died suddenly in a traffic accident on a cold, rainy morning, an old truck crashing straight into him as he pedaled his bicycle to the local market to sell vegetables. And from that moment on, a 23-year-old son was forced to become a father, a mother, and the sole pillar of a collapsing home. His mother, Saraswati, already frail, was now diagnosed with a severe heart condition. Every week, medication and tests cost more than Arun's entire month of part-time wages, most of which came from washing dishes in the campus canteen or tutoring the neighbors' children. His younger sister, Anika, a 10th grader, still tried to smile when he came home, but her eyes were growing quieter, as if afraid that wishing for anything more would break her brother completely. Arun was used to falling asleep at his desk, head on engineering textbooks, breath still scented with cheap coffee, and eyes so dark-ringed that friends suspected addiction. No one knew that every step Arun took was a battle. He wasn't living, he was surviving. And then, destiny arrived in the form of a strange woman. One rainy afternoon, as Arun stood shivering outside a rundown tea shop, counting coins for a small cup of hot chai, she appeared. A woman in a silvery gray sari, towering in front of him, as if she'd stepped straight out of the mist. Her eyes pierced his soul, cold, sharp, emotionless. Arun flinched, clutching the coins, barely able to react when she spoke in a calm, low voice. "You are Arun Mehta." It wasn't a question. It was a fact. He nodded instinctively. "Yes, I am. I know everything about you. Your father died 8 months ago. Your mother is being treated at Shanti Cardio Hospital. Your sister Anika is in 10th grade at Mandir Model School. Your family owes the bank 275,000 rupees. You work 3 part-time jobs. And still, you can't afford a new pair of shoes." Arun stepped back. His heart pounded. Suspicion filled his eyes. Who are you?" "My name is Rajeshwari Kapoor." The name hit him like a jolt. Not because he had met her, but because it had once graced the covers of India's biggest business magazines. A legendary businesswoman. Chairwoman of Kapoor Global Corp. The richest widow in the state. What could someone like her want with someone like him? "I have a proposal. Marry me, and I'll fix everything." Arun laughed, more out of pain than mockery. "What kind of joke is this? I'm 23, and you must be 71. And wealthy. But that's not what matters. This is a deal, no love, no strings. You'll be my husband on paper. In return, I'll clear your debts, pay for your mother's treatment, and fund your sister's education until she finishes college." The world inside Arun fell silent. Even the rain couldn't muffle the shock surging through him. Part of him wanted to run, to flee this terrifying woman. But another part, the one worn down by hardship, fear, and love for his family, whispered, "This might be your only chance." And in the suffocating silence, Arun asked, "Can I think about it for a few days?" Rajeshwari stared at him, then nodded. 3 days. No more. 3 days. 72 hours to decide whether to trade his life for a bizarre contract, or continue dying slowly in poverty. Arun didn't sleep for those 3 nights. He wrote his name dozens of times beside the surname Kapoor. He wondered if his signature would save his mother, or kill what little humanity he had left. On the 3rd day, he stood before a mirror, stared into his hollowed eyes, and whispered, "If I must trade my soul, then so be it." And so, 1 week later, Arun Mehta, the poor student with no shoes, became the legal husband of one of the most powerful women in the country. But little did he know, that was just the first door to a labyrinth of hell. Have you ever stepped into a place so grand it took your breath away, and yet felt cold to your bones, as if every wall was whispering, "Don't trust this beauty"? That was Arun's first feeling upon entering the Kapoor estate, a towering white mansion with ornate iron gates and chandeliers like captive stars. Once named South Mumbai's most luxurious villa in real estate magazines, it brought Arun no pride. No safety. Only disorientation. The wedding, if you could call it that, was as quiet as a notarization. No flowers, no music, no garlands or feast. Just signatures, dry declarations, a lawyer, and a stranger as witness. Not even a smile graced the bride's face, the woman nearly 50 years his senior. Rajeshwari Kapoor stood still, eyes void of emotion, as though signing a stock merger, not forming a marriage. That evening, Arun entered the mansion for the first time as family. It felt less like a homecoming and more like stepping into someone else's dream, a cold, silent dream. Everything was beautiful to the point of unreality: sky-high ceilings with 18th century European murals, marble floors cool beneath his feet, gleaming rosewood furniture, and crystal chandeliers hanging like frozen tears. And yet, the perfection made it feel unreal. It wasn't a home. It was a museum. There was no smell of food, no laughter, no children's footsteps, not even a single family photo on the wall. Arun felt like he had entered the house of a wealthy ghost desperately clinging to life's shell. The servants, or rather, living tomb keepers, were equally strange. Prakash, the butler, always kept his eyes lowered, as if afraid to meet a soul. Dia, the only young maid, moved like a shadow, avoiding Arun's gaze as though he were forbidden. No one asked what he wanted to eat, where he'd sleep, or even congratulated him on being the groom. From the very first night, Arun knew this marriage wasn't a home. It was a prison sentence: no bars, no chains, just silence and rules. Your room is on the 3rd floor. You are not allowed on the 2nd, Rajeshwari said during their first dinner together, her voice icy. Do not ask why. Arun nodded. He didn't argue, not then. But deep down, he knew he'd stepped into a place where wealth wasn't the only thing hiding, something darker than night lurked here. He couldn't sleep those first nights in the lavish yet empty room. He lay awake, staring out the large window where moonlight seeped through velvet curtains. Occasionally, he heard faint noises from the 2nd floor, creaking doors, shuffling feet, even whispering in an unknown language, like someone chanting. On the 4th day, Arun risked asking Prakash, "What's on the 2nd floor?" The old man froze. His hand trembled, dropping a silver tray. He picked it up without a word and walked away, leaving Arun stunned in the hallway. By day 5, Arun started quietly exploring when Rajeshwari was away. He didn't have a key to the 2nd floor, but he had sharp ears and a good memory. He noticed the lights on the 2nd floor sometimes flickered on, though no one went up. The door was always locked, but showed signs of being used. Security cameras were everywhere, yet strangely, all pointed at that one door. Arun's curiosity became more than instinct, it became survival. Something about the second floor felt like Pandora's box, ready to be opened. On the seventh night, Arun decided to secretly follow Rajeshwari. He saw her slip behind a hidden door behind a bookshelf, leading into a pitch-black underground passage. Her footsteps made no sound, like someone who had walked that darkness for decades. Arun dared to follow only a few steps before stopping. In his chest, suspicion had fully grown into fear. That night, the unthinkable happened. Rajeshwari came to him, not to talk, but to initiate marital intimacy. When Arun nervously reached out to touch her, something happened. Something he couldn't describe. He recoiled in horror. She was not what he thought. Not a normal woman. Not even a normal human. And that was only the beginning. If you're still watching this video and discovering the mystery of the second floor with Arun, comment the number 3 below to let us know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we recommend you do and hit the bell. Your support helps us continue making powerful stories to inform and inspire you. That night, after Arun recoiled in horror from Rajeshwari, his wife on paper, every fiber of his body and mind screamed one thing. Something is not right. But it wasn't just disgust or the jarring age difference. It was something deeper, a sense of dread, revulsion, and the inexplicable. Her body was unlike any normal human's. Her skin was ice cold despite the summer heat. Her pulse faint, as if it had slept for decades. And then, when Arun glanced toward the most private part of her body, what he saw made the blood drain from his face. There was no ordinary female anatomy. In its place was a deep, smooth scar, sealed, as if something had been surgically removed. As if she had undergone extreme surgery, or worse, she had once been a man. Arun stumbled backward, eyes wide in panic. He didn't dare ask. Didn't dare speak. Because he knew, if he spoke the truth aloud, the consequences might be irreversible. Rajeshwari simply looked at him. No anger. No shame. Just a thin, sardonic smile, sharp, dangerous. You don't need to pretend, Arun. I don't need a husband in bed. I need someone with the Kapoor name to complete my plan. Plan. Yes. And it's far from over. She stood up calmly, pulling her robe back into place, leaving Arun sitting frozen, feeling as if he'd been submerged in a glacial lake. From that moment, Arun understood, he wasn't just a pawn. He was in a chess game where every move could lead straight to hell. For 2 days, Arun didn't eat. Didn't sleep. He wandered the mansion like a ghost, avoiding the servants, and especially Rajeshwari. But the more he tried to avoid her, the clearer it became, this wasn't a home. It was a psychological labyrinth built by a master manipulator. He began recording every odd detail. When the second floor lights turned on, strange noises, shadowy figures passing behind frosted glass, whispers at night. He searched the dusty shelves in the library, hoping for a clue, anything that might answer one question. What exactly is hidden on the second floor? Then one night, as he walked down a quiet hallway, he noticed something unexpected. The second floor door was unlocked. No warning. No cameras watching. It was as if the entire house had fallen asleep, and the door itself was calling to him. His heart pounded like war drums in his chest. Arun took a deep breath and pushed it open. The creaking door groaned like a ghost from the past. Behind it lay a long, narrow, dark hallway. No lights. Only a faint glow leaking from one room at the end, a room with a cracked, peeling wooden door and a rusted nameplate. B. Kapoor. Arun's heart stopped. B. Kapoor. Vikram Kapoor. Rajeshwari's late husband. The man said to have taken his own life years ago. Trembling, Arun entered the room, hands shaking so badly he could barely turn the knob. Inside, it didn't look like a bedroom. It looked like a prison cell. There was a rusted iron bed chained to the wall. A desk filled with handwritten letters and faded photos. And on the wall, hundreds of pictures. Every one of them was of Arun's father, Rajesh Mehta. Newspaper clippings, security camera stills, cut-out headlines, all pinned like a crime investigation board. In one corner was a large photo. Vikram Kapoor standing beside a man, and Arun recognized him instantly, his father, decades younger. He could barely breathe. He stumbled forward. A red file lay on the desk. He opened it. The first line read, "Evidence of Rajesh Mehta's betrayal, 1994. That moment shattered Arun's world. His whole life, he had admired his father, a hard-working man who preached morality, honesty, sacrifice. But what he saw now was an accusation from the past, etched in obsession. And then, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow. Heavy. "You shouldn't be here, Arun," Rajeshwari's voice rang out, calm and cold like a midnight wind over a grave. He turned to face her. No longer afraid, just one burning question in his throat. "What is all this? Why me? What do you want from me?" Rajeshwari stepped into the room, her eyes falling on the old photograph. "I didn't choose you. Fate did. Your father brought you here, to repay his debt." Arun stood frozen in the forbidden room, once belonging to Vikram Kapoor. Surrounding him were artifacts collected and preserved for decades, as if someone had been nursing a grudge too long, waiting for the right moment to unleash it. And at the heart of that grudge was his father. Rajeshwari stepped slowly forward, each step crushing the memories of a generation. She didn't look at Arun, but at the photo of the two young men, Vikram and Rajesh, shaking hands in joy. He was Vikram's closest friend. They started with nothing, built everything together. But one day, your father chose another path, a shorter, crueler one. He betrayed him. Arun shook his head. "No, my father wasn't like that. He taught me to live with integrity, to be kind." "What he taught you is irrelevant," she snapped, eyes like steel. "What matters is what he did." Vikram founded Kapoor Tech with blood and brilliance. Your father was the first CFO. Then, during a major merger in 1994, he secretly transferred shares, took bribes, and got Vikram thrown out of his own company. She pulled out a letter, its ink slightly smudged, but her voice clear, like reciting a curse. "Rajesh, I trusted you. You were my brother. But you killed me with your own hands. I didn't die from failure. I died because the one I trusted most stabbed me in the back." Arun was speechless. His mind reeled. He thought of his father working late, teaching him life lessons, fixing a bicycle every morning so he could get to school. Those memories were real. But so were the photos. And so were the words. "Vikram took his own life," Rajeshwari said finally, "using the same kitchen knife he once used to cut my birthday cake. And a part of me died with him. Since that night, I've lived for one purpose, to restore justice with my own hands. And you think marrying me will atone for my father's sin?" Arun burst out. "I'm just a victim. I didn't do anything." Rajeshwari smiled, a mix of pity and poison. "No, Arun. You're not just a victim. You're the bridge between me and forgiveness. Or vengeance." She moved closer, speaking gently, like to a child. "You appeared just when Kapoor Group needed a legal heir, someone to sign contracts so I could quietly exit the company without drawing attention. But I didn't choose just anyone. I chose Rajesh's son. So when Judgment Day comes, it will be him who faces the truth." Arun stared at her. "So this was all a plan? You didn't help me out of pity. You married me to make me pay for my father's sins." "Exactly." Her answer hit like a punch to the gut. Every meeting, every gesture, all part of a script she had written long ago. He wasn't the hero. He was the sacrifice. And yet, in that moment of despair, Arun didn't cry. He simply stepped back and whispered, "I won't run. But I won't be anyone's puppet either. If you truly want justice, I'll help you find the truth. The light, and the darkness." Rajeshwari narrowed her eyes. "You think you're strong enough?" "No. But I have friends." The next day, Arun left the Kapoor mansion for the first time in days, carrying photos, letters, and files. His first stop, the tiny apartment of his college best friend, Kabir Sharma, now a passionate young lawyer. After hearing the full story, Kabir sat silently for a long time. Then slowly said, "Seems like we're standing in the middle of a swamp of the past. And if we want to cross it, we'll have to drag the light with us." Arun nodded. "I don't want to save my father. I want to save myself. And if truth means destroying my most cherished memories, then I'll go all the way." Kabir placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know someone. He doesn't believe in testimonies. He believes in traces. If truth exists, he'll find it." That was when Raghav Iyer entered the story. Do you believe that the truth, no matter how deeply buried beneath lies, power, and blood, will one day rise like a beast caged too long? When Kabir mentioned Raghav Iyer, Arun hadn't expected anything unusual. But from the very first moment they met, at a tiny tea stall near Marine Drive, with Mumbai's crowds rushing past, Arun knew he was meeting someone unlike anyone else. Raghav didn't dress like a lawyer or an investigator. He wore a plain shirt, scratched glasses, messy hair, and had a habit of locking eyes with people as if reading the thoughts behind every blink. His stare made Arun feel exposed. "You're Arun Mehta," Raghav said plainly after listening to Kabir's story. "And you're at the heart of a tragedy that's bigger than you. This is a larger map, where the dead still speak through files, and the living wear masks." Arun nodded. "I'm not looking for revenge. I just want to know who my father really was." Raghav smirked slightly, eyes sharp as blades. "Good. Because sometimes, truth is scarier than death." Over the next 3 weeks, Raghav and his team launched a full-scale investigation, not just into the past of Rajesh Mehta and Vikram Kapoor, but into the entire empire under Rajeshwari Kapoor's control. They unearthed old tax filings from law firm archives. They dissected shareholder records shuffled around like sleight-of-hand tricks. And from deep within those papers, a dark network began to emerge. Rajeshwari Kapoor wasn't merely a grieving widow seeking revenge. She was a critical node in a sprawling money laundering operation stretching from Mumbai to Dubai, from Swiss bank accounts to shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. Arun was stunned. He thought he understood the story, that Rajeshwari was a puppet master using him in a revenge plot. But the truth was more complicated. She was both victim and perpetrator. Her thirst for vengeance wasn't only for her husband, it had become a cloak to mask her growing crimes. One evening, Raghav sat with Arun and Kabir, rolling out a giant map filled with company names, account codes, and arrows tracing the movement of money. He pointed to a red dot in the center. "This is Neelam Holdings. It was originally registered under Vikram Kapoor before his death. 3 years after he died, the company mysteriously became active again, and the person signing the new contracts was Arun Mehta." Arun's eyes widened. "What? I've never signed anything like that." Raghav nodded. "I know. But someone used your name and filed you as the sole legal heir. That company currently holds a bank account containing over $8 million, moved there from sources now marked temporarily untraceable. You get it now? You're being turned into a tax shield, a fall guy, and a victim." The room fell silent. Arun sat there, throat dry, an unamiable mix of fear, rage, and disbelief surging in his chest. "So," he choked, "Rajeshwari didn't just marry me for revenge. She married me, to use me as a scapegoat." "She's smart," Raghav said flatly. "When it all comes crashing down, she can claim that every transaction and decision was made by Vikram Kapoor's heir, you. She'll paint herself as the grieving widow, long retired, uninvolved." Kabir shot to his feet. "We can't let this go on. She's not just manipulating Arun, she's manipulating the system." Raghav crossed his arms, voice steady like a judge. "That's why we need a plan. Bigger than revenge. Bigger than justice. We need to expose the truth before Arun is branded a criminal by the law." That night, Arun sat alone, staring out at the city skyline. The flickering streetlights felt like the breath of millions living their own lives, while he was lost in a maze no one saw coming. He opened an old box of family photos, one of his father holding him on his first day of school, his mother draped in white at the funeral, his sister smiling in her school uniform. They were why he entered this game. But now, they were also the reason he had to end it. Arun had once been a gentle young man, raised on the values his father passed down. But now, he was learning to survive in a world flipped upside down. A world where marriage was a tool for manipulation. Family, a golden cage. And truth, not liberation, but danger itself. With Kabir, the loyal friend, and Raghav, the cold, precise tracker, Arun began the counter-offensive. Their first target, Rajeshwari's hidden financial web. Raghav, once an analyst for the Financial Intelligence Unit, knew how to follow the money. But the problem was, all of Kapoor Group's assets were legalized through an intricate offshore web. One wrong move, and they'd be exposed, and Arun would be the first to hang. They began with Neelam Holdings, the phantom company in Arun's name. According to records, it had invested in real estate in Dubai, a tech firm in Singapore, and a luxury restaurant chain in Goa. But oddly, no one had seen any real activity. Raghav smirked as he examined a contract bearing Arun's name, the signature perfectly forged, but the ink came from an industrial UV printer. "She faked your signature with UV printing tech," he said, holding the scan under black light. "If the authorities catch wind of this, you'll still be the one charged. Because every document was signed by Arun Mehta." Arun sat silently. Another blow from the trap he'd walked into. "So, what do I do?" he asked hoarsely. "You become a witness," Kabir cut in, eyes blazing. You can't just be the victim. You have to step forward and expose it, before everything explodes. You have to show the world you're speaking up, not being forced to. It was a dangerous move. If it failed, Arun wouldn't just lose his name, he could lose his freedom. But if it worked, it would be the first strike against the fortress Rajeshwari had spent years building. 3 days later, Kabir and Arun had a secret meeting with veteran journalist Reena Deshmukh, known for exposing high-level financial scandals. She wasn't one to be intimidated, which was exactly why she'd lost 2 major sponsorships in the last year. "Do you know what you're getting into?" Arun asked nervously as they sat in a near-empty street-side eatery late at night. Reena sipped her chai, raising an eyebrow. "Do you know who you're going up against?" Rajeshwari Kapoor is the steel queen of the business world. She's got connections, politicians, generals, even media giants. Arun nodded. "That's why I need someone she can't buy." Reena looked at him for a long moment, then pulled out a mini voice recorder and placed it on the table. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." The interview lasted 3 hours. Arun recounted it all, from the first encounter outside the tea shop, to the terrifying night he discovered the truth about her body, the forbidden second floor, Vikram Kapoor's letters, and the forged contracts. By the end, Reena sat in silence. Her sharp gaze had softened, not out of pity, but as if recognizing a soul clawing through the wreckage of 2 generations. "You've got guts, Arun," she said, slipping the recorder into her jacket. "And I think, your story isn't just a scandal. It's a symbol. A symbol of our generation, the youth forced to bear the consequences of those before us, but refusing to bow. Choosing to speak truth, even if it costs them everything." A few days later, the headline blazed across the front page of the Mumbai Herald. "Rajeshwari Kapoor's secret husband, is marriage a cover for financial crimes?" The public erupted. TV channels ran back-to-back coverage, dissecting the Kapoor Group's history. People began questioning dubious funds, ghost companies, and shady investments. Arun, once anonymous, became a lightning rod. Some called him a hero. Others branded him a gold digger, a traitor. And Rajeshwari? She stayed silent. But not out of helplessness. It was the silence of a predator, ready to strike back. Just 3 days after the article went viral, Arun felt like he was trapped in a storm. His phone never stopped ringing. Reporters, acquaintances, even long-lost friends suddenly reappeared to check in. His university removed him from their list of notable alumni. Worse, his sister Anika began facing whispers and isolation at school. Online, the rumor machine went wild. Poor student marries millionaire, then exposes her, victim or manipulative traitor. Where is she? Arun asked Kabir during a sleepless night. Why hasn't Rajeshwari struck back? Kabir sighed. Because she doesn't have to. People like her don't fight with knives, they fight with public opinion. With doubt. She wants you to question yourself. And just as Kabir predicted, her counter-strike came at Arun's weakest moment. That Monday morning, under soft rain, Arun received a call from his bank. His personal account, which only had a few thousand rupees, had just received a deposit of 25 million rupees, 2.5 crore, from a Mauritius account. Minutes later, an anonymous email was sent to 12 major newspapers, accusing Arun of accepting bribes to fabricate lies about Rajeshwari. By afternoon, the Financial Investigation Bureau froze Arun's accounts and summoned him for questioning regarding suspicious funds. Kabir slammed his hand on the table, bloodshot from sleepless nights. It's a trap. A perfect trap. She wired money to your account, and now she's using that transaction to accuse you of laundering. Raghav dialed a contact at the central bank. As he waited, he looked at Arun, voice like steel. From this moment on, every move you make is being watched. Your phone, your emails, even your social media. We're out of time. That night, Arun received a handwritten letter. Not through the mail. Someone had slid it under his door, with a scent he immediately recognized. Rajeshwari's perfume. He opened it, and his heart sank. Arun. I told you from the beginning, you were just a pawn. But you were naive enough to believe you could become a player in this game. I built an empire from blood and ashes. You think a single article can bring me down? This is no longer a game. This is war. And I never lose wars. No signature. Just a black paper flower clipped to the letter, the old symbol of Kapoor Group from the 1990s, before Vikram's death. Arun clutched the letter, hands trembling. There was no doubt now, Rajeshwari was awake. 2 days later, the case officially made headlines as the double accusation, Arun versus Rajeshwari. Television anchors debated everything, from the age gap in their marriage to why Arun suddenly exposed his wife. Even Reena, the journalist who had interviewed him, was summoned for questioning. Her office was raided for financial records. Sponsors pulled out en masse. For a brief moment, Arun felt like everything was collapsing. Trust, justice, support, each one snapped, one after another, without mercy. He nearly gave up. Until one night, he received an anonymous text message. Want to know who your father really was? Come to the old house in Andheri West. Room 302. Bring Vikram's final letter to Rajesh. Tell no one. The number was untraceable. But Arun's instincts told him, someone was giving him one last chance to flip the board. He turned to Kabir and Raghav. I have to go. Not alone, Raghav said, pulling a small pistol from his bag, eyes steely. We'll go with you. But remember, Arun, there's no turning back from this. If you walk through that door, you'll have to face the darkest truth your father ever hid. That night, they drove to a small room in Andheri, where truths had been buried for nearly 3 decades. They didn't know that on the other side of the door, wasn't just truth, but someone who had waited a very long time to speak what the world had forgotten. When Arun, Kabir, and Raghav arrived at the rundown apartment building in Andheri West, it was exactly 2 a.m. A light rain had just stopped, leaving behind the musty smell of soaked dust. The building was dilapidated. Each step up the rusted stairs groaned under their weight. Room 302 was at the end of the 3rd floor hallway. The wooden door had peeling paint. A crooked nameplate read, Arun Mehta, v. Kapoor, 1992. The three stood still for a moment. Raghav gave a silent signal, hand near his concealed weapon. Arun knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. He tried the handle. It turned, unlocked. The room inside was small, covered in dust. But what stunned them wasn't the size, it was what remained inside. The entire room had been preserved like a shrine. Every paper, every object, left untouched. And in the center, a black ebony box, covered in cobwebs, with 2 carved Sanskrit letters. Nyaya, justice. With trembling hands, Arun opened the lid. Inside was an old leather journal, 3 black and white photos, and a cracked wristwatch. Kabir picked up the journal and read aloud the first lines. July 12, 1994. If I die, please know, I never meant to betray Vikram. I was just a weak man, forced to do something I will regret for the rest of my life. Raghav clenched his fists. Rajesh Mehta's diary. Arun grabbed the journal, flipping through the pages like a man dying of thirst. I thought I could endure it. But when they started threatening Saraswati and Arun, I had no choice. Vikram doesn't know, he thinks I betrayed him for money. But I just wanted to protect my family. The one behind it all wasn't me. It was Sharma, Vikram's legal advisor and old friend. He conspired with shadow investors, staged a bankruptcy, and pushed Vikram out of the company. I was just a pawn. Raghav narrowed his eyes. Sharma. I've seen that name in Kapoor Tech's corporate records. Arun stood frozen. Every judgment, every bit of resentment he had ever held against his father, shattered. His father wasn't the traitor. He was the fall guy. Silenced to protect his family. That was why he lived a quiet life. Why he left everything behind. A man who sacrificed his honor, so his son could live in a world unstained by blood. Then came a sound behind them. They turned. A hunched old man stood in the doorway. The hallway light cast shadows across his wrinkled face and eyes dark as tunnels. Leaning on a cane, he spoke in a voice rough with years of silence. You boys, finally made it? Raghav motioned Kabir to stay alert. Arun stepped back, wary. Who are you? The man coughed softly, then said. I am Ramesh Sharma, Vikram Kapoor's former advisor. The last living man who knows the whole truth. No one spoke. The wind howled through the corridor. Dust swirled over the wooden floor. Sharma stepped inside, eyes fixed on the ebony box still in Arun's hands. I've lived in hiding for 25 years, waiting for someone to come. Someone brave enough to reopen this case. And you are the one who brought the light back. Arun clutched the box tightly, trembling. Why did you betray Vikram? Why was my father turned into a scapegoat? Sharma sat down with a heavy sigh. Because I was bought. By Rajeshwari Kapoor herself. The room froze. She wasn't just a grieving widow. She knew Vikram wanted to step down and transfer company control to a non-profit trust. She disagreed. She wanted to expand the empire. But Vikram wanted out. So she created a tragedy. Raghav clenched his jaw. So the betrayal, Vikram's suicide, all of it was a setup. Sharma nodded. And I was the one who executed it? I forged documents, manipulated shareholders with my team, pinned the blame on Rajesh, and drove Vikram to the edge. Kabir asked quietly. So, was Vikram's death really a suicide, or? Sharma was silent for a long time. Then, with a broken voice, he said. None of us ever saw Vikram's body, only Rajeshwari did. Arun swayed. The floor beneath him felt like it might collapse. A new question emerged. Was Vikram ever truly dead? Or is he still being kept somewhere? This secret could rewrite the entire game. And it could kill anyone who dared uncover it. If you're still watching this video and want to follow Arun to the very end of this mystery, please comment the number 9 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed, I recommend you do and hit the bell. Your support helps us keep making powerful stories that inform and inspire you. After that fateful night in room 302 in Andheri, Arun was no longer the naive student led by emotion. He had seen the darkest side of truth. His father was innocent. Rajeshwari was the puppet master. And Vikram Kapoor's death had never been confirmed. That night, they returned with a single thought. They had to go back to the Kapoor mansion. They had to unlock the second floor, the hellish vault that had always remained sealed. Raghav led the plan. For 3 days, they tracked Rajeshwari's movements. Lately, she had been disappearing at night, claiming board meetings. But no one knew where she really went. Kabir quietly contacted a former bodyguard of Kapoor Group and confirmed a chilling detail. The second floor door didn't lead to a room, but to a hidden hallway, completely absent from any architectural plans. Like a space built just to hide something, Raghav concluded. If Vikram isn't dead, or if his body was never found, he could be imprisoned there. On the fourth night, when Rajeshwari left the mansion, Arun returned quietly to what was once his home. Using a stolen keycard from Maid Dia, he opened the second floor door, the gate to hell that had been locked for years. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase, damp, the dim light flickering. The brick walls were unplastered. The smell of rust and disinfectant hit like a punch. No one said a word. All three, Arun, Raghav, Kabir, descended slowly. Each step felt like walking over rotting memories. At the end of the hallway was a steel door. On it, a single phrase, faded in old Hindi. Never open. Arun took a deep breath. His hand trembled as he reached for the fingerprint scanner. It was still coded to Rajeshwari's print, and luckily, the system hadn't been updated. The door unlocked, inch by inch. Inside was a large, windowless room, lit only by cold fluorescent lights. In the corner, on a medical bed, lay an old man, long silver hair, a thick beard, his arms and legs restrained with leather straps. Above his head was a piece of electronic equipment, some kind of neural monitor or brainwave tracking device. Arun's heart stopped. Kabir stammered. Is that Vikram? Raghav rushed forward to check vitals. The heart still beat. Breathing was shallow. But unmistakably, he was alive. Beside the bed stood a steel cabinet. Inside were high-dose sedatives, neural monitoring devices, and a thick folder filled with medical notes. Arun opened it. Rajeshwari's handwriting was clear and unmistakable. Patient, Vikram Kapoor. Condition, paranoid schizophrenia, stage 3 delusions, prone to violent episodes triggered by memory recall. Treatment must continue long-term. Do not allow him to remain conscious for more than 4 hours/day. Below were detailed logs, injection times, reaction levels, and most chilling, notes of convulsions when he screamed one name. Rajesh. Rajesh. Arun stood frozen. This man, once a symbol of an era, a revered husband, declared dead by betrayal and suicide, had been imprisoned by his own wife for nearly 30 years, buried alive beneath a mansion of lies. Arun stepped closer, trembling as he held the old man's hand. The man stirred. One eye opened, cloudy, but still carrying a flicker of life. He groaned, his lips barely moving. Raj, Esh. No, Arun whispered, voice cracking. I'm Arun. Son of Rajesh Mehta. Vikram blinked. A single tear slipped from the corner of his eye, grief reborn in a fleeting moment. His hand squeezed Arun's, weak but firm enough to break the young man's heart. I'll get you out of here, Arun promised. I swear. But just as they turned to leave, the hallway lights flickered. A door slammed open above them. Heels clicked coldly on marble tile. And then, that voice. Colder than steel. So, you're not as stupid as I thought. Rajeshwari had returned. Rajeshwari Kapoor stood tall at the basement threshold, her shadow stretched long like a demon risen from its grave. Her eyes, once a mystery to Arun, once feared and admired, were no longer hiding anything. They were the eyes of someone who had won too many wars to fear losing one. Step away from that room, she ordered, voice like a scalpel. Raghav raised his gun, steady and unshaken. One more step and you'll be arrested for unlawful imprisonment and abuse. Rajeshwari laughed, not the laugh of a woman, but of a ghost born from power. You think you've figured it all out? Truth. What is truth in a world where money can rewrite history? Arun stepped forward, placing himself between her and Vikram. The truth is that he's alive. And the world is about to find out. He should have died, she hissed. He betrayed me. He wanted to throw it all away to live like some foolish philanthropist. I built this empire with blood, nails, and tears. I won't let anyone, not even Vikram, destroy it. Arun's voice cracked with fury. No. You didn't build an empire with sweat. You built it with lies, imprisonment, and by condemning an innocent man, my father. Rajeshwari took a step closer, her eyes boring into Arun's, for the first time, without mask or pretense. You want to play justice with me? Fine. But let me remind you, you're also implicated in the very laundering system you claim to expose. The name Arun Mehta appears in 20 hidden transactions. Who's going to believe you're innocent? A poor student who married a 71-year-old widow and suddenly cries victim. Sounds more like extortion, doesn't it? Kabir stepped forward and threw a thick file to the ground, documents from room 302, Rajesh Mehta's journal, and Ramesh Sharma's testimony. We have proof. And we have Vikram Kapoor, a living witness. Everything's been digitized and uploaded to global backup servers. Even if you kill us today, the evidence will automatically go to the press and the police. For a moment, Rajeshwari hesitated. For the first time, a flicker of fear flashed in her eyes. But then, she smirked. You think you've won? What is law when the lawmakers were once fed by my hand? The police? Courts? Media? All chess pieces I've moved before. I can do it again. Raghav raised his gun higher. You're right. You used to control the system. But your time is over. This is the age of data, truth, and social media. And this time, you can't bury anything. Outside the basement, sirens howled. Arun, Kabir, and Raghav had planned this. The moment they entered the second floor, they activated a signal beacon and began recording everything. Reena, the journalist, had promised to mobilize an independent media crew to capture it all. Rajeshwari stood frozen. Police footsteps drew closer. Finally, she lowered her eyes, stepped back, and turned to leave. But before crossing the threshold, she looked back at Arun, her gaze deep and bottomless. You think you've won. But remember this. Truth never brings happiness. It leaves only ashes. And one day, you will know the pain of losing everything. When the past you cannot change comes into the light. Then she walked away, like a fallen queen, proud until the last second. The police stormed in. Vikram Kapoor was placed on a stretcher, the first rays of light in 3 decades brushing his fading eyes. Arun stood quietly in the corner. Not triumphant. Not joyful. Only one thing remained, a single hot tear rolling down his cheek. As he whispered, "Dad, I've restored your name." After the events on the second floor, Rajeshwari Kapoor was arrested on the spot. The entire mansion was sealed. The news sent shockwaves through the media, social platforms, and even the political world. The next morning's headlines dominated every front page. Vikram Kapoor is alive. Rajeshwari Kapoor arrested for illegal imprisonment and global financial manipulation. Over 29 years since Vikram had disappeared, the truth had finally risen from the depths of deception. Vikram Kapoor was taken to a private hospital under special supervision. He remained in a semi-comatose state, his body weakened by decades of sedation and total isolation. But his spirit, though tortured, had not been broken. Arun visited every day. He didn't say much. He simply sat beside him and read letters from his father, fragments of journal entries. Sometimes Vikram opened his eyes, lips trembling to speak. But words remained a stone wall Arun couldn't yet break through. Kabir, Raghav, and Reena continued gathering evidence, testimonies, and duplicating records across multiple locations. They coordinated with human rights lawyers to escalate the case to the highest level: crimes against humanity, unlawful imprisonment, international money laundering, forgery, and organized defamation. At the first trial, Rajeshwari remained composed. Not a tear. Not an apology. She claimed in her testimony, "Vikram Kapoor suffered from severe mental illness. Everything I did was to protect him from the outside world. These accusations are political schemes and filthy media manipulation." The court ordered a comprehensive psychological evaluation for Vikram. After 3 weeks of therapy, a breakthrough came. Vikram began recovering his memory. In a closed session with the court, lawyers, doctors, and Arun present, he was asked gently, "Mr. Kapoor, do you remember anything about the day you disappeared?" With a voice like wind through stone, Vikram replied shakily, "I remember. I had written my resignation from Kapoor Group. I didn't want to expand it with dirty money. I told Rajeshwari, then that night. I drank my usual tea, but it tasted different. I woke up in a dark room. They injected something. I screamed. No one came. Whenever I thought of the company, or Rajesh Mehta, it felt like knives in my brain. They told me I was insane. But I wasn't. I was never insane." That testimony shattered the courtroom. Public pressure surged. Thousands flooded social media demanding justice for Vikram. Companies severed ties with Kapoor Group. Politicians once loyal to Rajeshwari fell silent. Yet her defense attorney, known for turning black into white, launched a psychological strike. "My client was deeply traumatized by the supposed death of her husband. Everything she did stemmed from post-traumatic grief. If Vikram is alive, surely he can understand the pain of the woman he left behind." The courtroom went still, suffocatingly quiet. Arun stood. Though not entitled to speak, he asked to say one thing. The judge nodded. He looked directly at Rajeshwari, the woman who had dragged his life from poverty into hell, and said, "I don't hate you. I just feel sorry. Sorry, because maybe once, you truly loved him. But when love turns into possession, and possession into captivity, that's no longer love. That's destruction. You didn't just imprison Vikram. You imprisoned yourself in the shadows of your own power." Rajeshwari said nothing. But for the first time, her eyes shimmered. Tears, perhaps. Or the last flicker of conscience. After 3 months of proceedings, the court delivered its verdict. Rajeshwari Kapoor, guilty of 5 major criminal charges, including unlawful imprisonment, document forgery, financial manipulation, and human rights violations. Sentence: life imprisonment without parole. The courtroom fell silent. Arun closed his eyes, not in triumph, but because his heart had finally been freed from its chains. As Rajeshwari was escorted away, she turned back once more. No hatred. No threats. Only a whisper, soft as winter's last wind. You've won. But live long enough, and you'll understand what it means to lose everything. In the aftermath of a national scandal, the name Arun Mehta was no longer a background character in someone else's story. He became a symbol, not of power, but of courage. The kind of courage it takes to seek the truth, even when it destroys the very memories you once held sacred. But Arun didn't rejoice. He felt no pride. Only a deep, quiet emptiness. Rajeshwari's sentence was life in prison. But in her final look, Arun saw something more haunting than guilt, the ruin of a soul burned by power. Maybe, in another lifetime, she had been someone worthy of love. Someone who dreamed. But she chose control over surrender. Hatred over forgiveness. And paid for it by locking herself inside a cage she built with her own hands. Vikram Kapoor, the spiritual father of Kapoor Group, recovered fragments of his memory. Though still frail, he looked at Arun each day like seeing a piece of his old friend, Rajesh Mehta. One golden afternoon at the hospital, Vikram asked, "Do you forgive your father for staying silent so long?" Arun squeezed his hand, eyes glassy. "He chose to protect me. I don't need to forgive him. I just want to live in a way that honors him." Months later, Arun left Mumbai. He took no riches with him, only a small backpack, a few old journals, and a worn family photo where his parents and Anika smiled beneath a winter sun. He settled in a coastal town in the south, where no one knew his name. There, he began teaching poor children, helping them learn, believe in kindness, and dream freely. He declined interviews. Turned down every chance to profit from fame. Because Arun had seen a world where everything could be bought. And he never wanted to return. It was there that he reunited with Aditya Rao, his old college friend, once a volunteer nurse. The only person who had looked at him not with curiosity or pity, but with silent understanding. Their love didn't arrive like a storm, but like water, slowly soaking into wounds thought never to heal. One night, under a silver moon, Arun whispered to Aditya, "I used to think freedom meant escaping darkness. But now I understand, freedom is the courage to let go. Letting go of hate. Of the past. And even of the self I once thought was perfectly righteous." Aditya gently took his hand. "And when you let go, what did you find?" Arun smiled, eyes shining with peace he'd never known before. "I found myself." Years later, Arun and Aditya were married in a small ceremony. No press. No noise. Just close friends, students, and one special guest, Vikram Kapoor, now walking with a cane, his face radiant like sunlight after long rain. On their wedding day, Vikram handed Arun his old watch, the one found in the basement years ago. He placed it in Arun's hand and said, "You can't get back time. But if you use it right, it can heal everything." Arun nodded, embracing him like a part of his own father. Finally, Arun wrote a book. Not about revenge. Not to accuse. But titled, "The Son's Story, My Father, the Greatest Traitor in My Heart." The book didn't just help readers understand a generational tragedy, it helped Arun finally close the last door of his past. Because he knew. The real ending doesn't come when the villain is punished. It comes when the wounded learn how to live again. And so, the story of Arun Mehta ended, not in glory, but in quiet peace. But for millions of readers, millions of viewers who followed his journey, it became a timeless lesson. That truth can be buried, but it never dies. And if you're brave enough to follow it all the way, it will set you free. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share one thing this story taught you, and how you'll carry it into your life. Your voice matters. Reading your reflections brings strength, healing, and inspiration to us all. If this story moved your heart, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue crafting stories that awaken the soul. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.